The Opticks and the Principles of Natural Philosophy include two incredible errors of Newton. Both of these errors are related to gravity. The cult rendered to this personality has totally inhibited any reflection on his assertions. To explain gravitation, Newton considers space to be filled with a fluid ether of variable density. This variable density of the ether allowed him to explain the wave effects of his particles of light. The density of ether increases as it approaches bodies, and therefore also stars. Of course, it may be objected that Newton does not affirm that this ether exists. He asks the question. This is also what Descartes did in his Principles. It is a way of proposing an explanation without implying a hypothesis. Newton claimed to avoid making hypothesis. However, once the explanation has been proposed, it is not possible to draw an absurd conclusion from it. Newton did not believe, for a moment, in the possibility of an attraction between bodies. He tried to explain the fall of the bodies by the variation of density of the ether, which caused a push of the bodies towards each other. It is therefore an Archimedean thrust. However, Archimedes' thrust results from gravitation. It can therefore in no way be the cause of gravitation. There is something amazing about this error. The other error has been perpetuated to the present day, and there are still treatises on the tides, which mention Newton's explanation. Newton wrote that the tides result from the gravitational forces of the sun and the moon. But to explain the two tides per day, he considers that the gravitational force of the sun also acts on the earth, on the ground, under the oceans, so that the action of the earth itself on the oceans would be reduced. This differential effect was assumed to explain that there are two tides per day and that the moon has, in fact, an effect similar to that of the sun, while its gravitational force, at the distance from the earth, is much weaker than that of the sun. We are so used to seeing our astronauts talk about weightlessness that Newton's huge mistake is obvious. The center of the earth is in a state of weightlessness in its rotation around the sun. It is quite obvious. The force of gravity is a little greater on the surface of the earth on the sun side, therefore closer to the sun, than on the other side. But it is perhaps less obvious that the situation is exactly the same for the moon. It must be remembered that the earth does not revolve around the center of the sun, but around the center of gravity of the Earth-Sun ensemble. It is the same with the moon. The moon obviously revolves around the Earth-Moon center of gravity, but the Earth also revolves around this center of gravity, and therefore the Earth is in a state of weightlessness, also in this movement. The reasoning is exactly the same. However, the calculation shows that these differential effects of the sun and the moon are of the same order of magnitude. There are therefore two high tides per day. Nevertheless, Newton cannot be blamed for having given a totally false explanation of the shifts in tide times, depending on location. The tsunami effect allows us today to better understand. This will be the subject of another video.